last part again. To serve with all and a nation where because and that's why Nigeria is one of the greatest rewarding nation on the face of the planet. Let's celebrate my friend and my brother once again. God be welcome.
Thank you very much. Please celebrate MC Pato, who has been doing well trying to make the environment lively. Please put your
hands up for me now. I'm not trying. Okay.
I think maybe because they are not seeing us. Please celebrate MC Pato one more time. Doing well.
Thank you.
No, Nigeria is one country that is waiting for you to die.
Yes.
Have you noticed? He has not died yet. Can you clap? Can you make that applause? Let's take that applause.
Either you die or you win the election. That's when it's celebrating. Before then, you're on your own.
Okay, my name is Mr. Champion. I'm a corporate MC and I'm your host for today. I'm working with MC Pato. We want to say that before we start doing our policy, everyone seated here today is special. So can you specially recognize yourself? Can you appreciate you? Can you appreciate you? Is that the best you can do for yourself? Maybe the only thing says love your neighbor as yourself. That's because some people will never love themselves.
Absolutely.
They want to love their neighbor first. Okay, without much ado, we'll be recognizing the presence of the Group Controller, Public and Current Affairs, TVC News, and Patron of CMC Gladiators, in the person of Mr. Babajide Kolade or Tito. Please put your hands together for this media
incredible gentleman.
You know, if you watch journalists hang out,
yeah,
and you see so many things they do in terms of educating and informing the populace concerning what is going on in the country.
Absolutely.
I think it deserves a better round of applause.
Yes.
Welcome, sir.
And to me, he's one of the very few patriotic Nigerians. He says it the way it is.
Yes.
You know.
Without mincing words.
Absolutely. We appreciate you so very much, sir. You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
All right, next on my list, another incredible gentleman of the press, presenter, journalist hangout. Please let's welcome and acknowledge the presence of Ayo Ashubaku in our midst.
Presenter, journalist hangout, TVC News.
You're welcome, sir.
Welcome, sir.
Okay. Even though he's sitting down, he's still taller than some of us. Because you're welcome, sir.
We appreciate your presence. Okay, we also want to recognize the presence of the publisher of Classic Magazine and convener of Kama, Mr. Dave Abonzi. Mr. Dave, I cited you the other time. You're very much welcome. Please, I don't know if it's the AC that is affecting the applause. Can we make the applause richer, stronger, and better? Thank you.
Maybe it's the weather.
Okay.
And also in our midst, ladies and gentlemen, we have a leader of the Nigerian youth, UN ambassador for peace, one of Africa's most remarkable, most renowned PR legend. He is a legend, a living legend. I appreciate him so very much. Please, if your hands are not too busy, let's appreciate the presence of the convener of CMC Africa and founder of CMC Gladiators of Repute, Ambassador Cornel Odofia.
Please, a round of applause to Cornel Baba.
And please, I want to say another reason why you have to appreciate Cornel. This is the first time Cornel is wearing suit this year. Please clap for him. Clap for the suit. Clap for the suit.
Okay, we also want to recognize a very top journalist in our midst, the person of Mr. Charles Oku-Gemini. Please put your hands together for him. Mr. Charles, we appreciate your presence.
Okay, also to recognize the esteemed presence of another distinguished member of the fourth estate of the REM, publisher of Pan-African Magazine. Let's appreciate Mr. David. Welcome, sir. Also, another top journalist here present. Let's welcome Mr. Syracuse. Mr. Sirakus, are you in the building?
Very much welcome.
Yes.
Thank you for coming.
In the way here, Sirakus, Livinus, and Linus, Izolu, Zabubu. You're welcome. No. Kalusa. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, while we are waiting for all the distinguished to be having a welcome address, and to do justice to that is the chairman of the awards screening committee for National Community Media Awards 2021. Please put your hands together for Mr. Oyedu as he comes forward for the welcome address. Please put your hands together.
We can do better without round of applause. We can do better. Let's keep the applause going.
Welcome, sir. We're still clapping, please. Can we just appreciate him?
Like I said, the way you appreciate others, that is how others will appreciate you. We are here to celebrate and appreciate ourselves. Please, once again, another warm round of applause for the gentleman.
A good evening to us all distinguished guests. I would have loved to say our excellencies and this, but we who have been members of the press for long are used to calling each other, consider each other equals. And so it's not as if we don't like protocols, but at the same time, so that we can be free with each other and be free both with mind and everything, we welcome everybody here. And before I move forward, let me first of all thank those who made today possible. The organizers and the contributors to everything that we are doing. It is a delight for me particularly to be here now, considering that what we are celebrating today has cost several of us, some of us about 50 years of being in the pen business. But it is not the pen business alone that I should talk about. I should want to explain or expatiate on why it is necessary or why I remember to say to thank those who organized today while welcoming you. It's a likely thing that some of us realize that without journalism, only goodness to what the situation of any community will be. I'm not taking over the lecture from those who do it. It is their day. For certain things that we recognize that we teach us or make it necessary to have our guest speakers there is the responsibility placed on journalism or the press itself. Without news of what is going on all over, the community can be strangers to each other. And we will find it difficult to find a ground where we shall have a meeting point or where we shall say that things are going right or not going right. Apart from the three extents of the realm of which two are elected, the executive and the legislature, then we have the judiciary. We of the press are the eyes, the ears, and the mouth of the people. And any of us who have actually been in this profession for long, we realize that it is not a joking affair. It is not entertainment, certainly. Because if you take this job seriously, we appreciate that all the time you feel responsible and ethically you consider yourself most times the instrument, and you even so guard yourself that you find it difficult to be very rich or to be rich if there is no other extra practice at the side. Because since we are not supposed to conform or to grovel or to live up to the expectations of those who are actually maybe prosperous, or who will want to twist things their way, if we are going to fight for those we are responsible for, then we will realize that it is not a joking affair. Some people can buy the whole lot of us there, but we as members of the press consider that as only at the side. We suppose all the time to be able to damn any demagogue. And if we fail to do this, then we are failing the people. And we don't know what will be the end of the community. It's not only the government that sometimes we are notable for criticizing or for exposing what is the exposables. We discover that going on within the public itself is part of the responsibility of our responsibility to expose, to bring to the people. So that with this realization, which is all over the world, no means of collecting information or disseminating it, there will be no democracy. It is natural for human beings to want to dominate others. And the more the richer or the more prosperous, the more influential you are, you feel your ideas should actually surpass or be what the people should say. Now let's go to Nigeria. I don't want to take our time or give my current papers in my hands. I stayed several years as a teacher in this communication business. So I find it difficult most times to go to the podium or anything without carrying something in my hand to remind me of what the task is. Starting from the beginning, this year makes it about 162 years of journalism in Nigeria. So it didn't start yesterday. It started before the name Nigeria itself became well established. That was 1859. And from the onset, the press has realized that it is not formed. We had of Davis, somebody who has a PhD in English, and several others who had to be sent to prison to have some taste of what it is like to clash with powers that be. So, starting from this one, we know that we are not alone. If any of us suffers any deprivation, it is not me. And of course, the purpose of this is to, of course, ginger us for the task ahead. We won't be here today, particularly Nigeria may not be independent, without the status of those who, from what used to be a Lagos colony, were digging it with the colonial masters. Lord Bugard, who used to be the Governor General, made a right comment that when he sneezes, the Nigerian press will interpret it to be something. Meaning that it is not just writing stories. Anybody can write stories, though we are not supposed to write fiction. But we call something journalism. That is, out of these stories, we draw, we insinuate, and we look forward to certain things which we suggest are likely to be the end of such stories. Therefore, I don't want to think, let me still move forward. Before independence, there were. After independence, there is. The owners of this world and six of this world knew what it is to pester the white man. It would be surprising to several of us who have been depressed to realize that Chief Awolowo of that time was the first person to publish the Labour Press. And it was through the Labour that actually Nigerians faced, and remember the press at that time called for people to avoid job or to show the white man that there are people here. They get them to recognize, to sort of obey. If we as from here, several of us will travel because we have responsibilities. And because of the responsibilities which we have, we cannot afford what several other people that the recruited may have. It is not easy for anybody to say that, well, if we don't join them, if we join them, we certainly will not need this award. Another thing is, when we move ahead, in 65, we were born the forces. In 1964, 365, after independence, when things were going zigzag, the press champion what eventually led to the change in government. I'm not here to criticize any government or to say this is that, but we should remind those who are coming behind, or those who will tell us the way forward, that it has not been an easy task. During the military era, it was also the press never relented. The Taka Dabo affair started what led to the Abahaku Amidawi, and we all know what happened. After Mutala, and there was a job the press never gave up. Remember what? Okay? I don't want to take much time of us. Therefore, let me agree on that this award is to ginger and to let us still wake up and realize that those of us or any of us who choose to make this job, we pray that God will give that person the strength to commit himself to realizing that he is to be the champion of freedom for the people.
Thank you. Please, a round of applause. Thank you so very much. Please, you can do better with that round of applause for the chairman.
Thank you so much.
Planning committee. Thank you. All right, so while he was making his speech, thank you. Okay, we're going to be having a discussion segments in a short while. My FC is going to be doing justice to that, but I want to quickly recognize the esteemed presence of a distinguished young Nigerian lady in diaspora. She's actually based in the UK. She's being represented here. She's been doing wonderfully well for Nigerian actors and actors, promoting them online with our talent discovery platform online, and we will appreciate the presence. Please, if your hands are not too busy, let's make welcome and appreciate the presence of Nollywood, award-winning Nollywood actress, Eno Muto in the building, representing Nkechi the Discovery in the UK. God bless you. You're welcome, Mr. Champion.
Thank you very much, MC Pato. Without much ado, we'll be having the panelists come off stage now, and I quickly want to invite them to do justice to our wonderful topic, the need for a bold media. First on my list, I want to welcome upstage, please, if your hands are not too busy, Mr. Legon Otufodun. Please put your hands together for him, our special guest lecturer for
Executive Director, Media Career Services Network. Please keep the applause going. Keep the applause going.
Very much welcome.
Keep the applause going. Thank you, Mr. TJ. That's how we roll.
Very much welcome, sir. Thank you. Okay, next to him we'll be having, of course, our boss all the way from TVC. I've introduced him earlier, Mr. Babajide Kolade Otitoju. Please put your hands together for
the head of current affairs, TVC, a remarkable, fearless Nigerian journalist. Please celebrate him, ladies and gentlemen. Put your hands together for him. You're welcome, boss.
You're welcome, sir. Thank you very much. And also joining this wonderful panelists, we have the man that just stepped out now, the chairman of the award screening committee himself is joining this wonderful panel session. Mr. Oyedo, one more time, please come forward. Please put your hands together for the chairman Award Screening Committee for
Please, let's celebrate now the way you want people to celebrate
Award
you.
2021.
You're welcome
So much. You're welcome, sir. Thank you so much. Okay, we want to say that we appreciate your presence, and we know that we have wonderful ideas about what we want to talk about. So I'll just quickly, please just just introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Leko Fodure, and I'm a journalist and
Thank you, sir. Please pass the mic. Thank you. Please, a round of applause for him, please. Thank you.
My name is BY Kolade, a journalist and a patriot.
Please celebrate him. You're welcome.
I used to be a teacher at the Bank Journalism Institute before it finally closed down. I earlier taught at the Nigerian Institute of Journalism. But earlier, I've worked with some media houses. Used to be a columnist most times in the Nigerian Standard newspaper. Also, with some other institutions, and then briefly, the Civil Bank of Nigeria, the Civil Bank program of credit.
Thank you very much. A round of applause for Mr. Yegu, please. Please, let's put our hands together for our panelists, please. Please, can we celebrate them? Thank you. Okay. Okay, you have the mic. I was about coming to you. All right, please quickly tell us what's the state of the media in the Nigerian sector and how do you want to rate the media so far? And of course, the current state Nigeria is. Please, over to you, sir.
It's a very difficult question to ask because so much has changed in the Nigerian media family. And I don't want to be like President Buhari who blames the youth at every opportunity. I know that the practice of our profession is not as profound as it used to be in the 80s and even 90s. Today, the profession is inhabited by people that, largely by people that I would describe as pets of passage. In the past, it was your passion that drove you to become a journalist. Your passion and nothing else. Because it's not a profession where you expect to make millions and all that. So the best journalists were the journalists who were extremely self-motivated. When I look around now, it's difficult to find many journalists who are self-motivated. A lot of journalists that we see today are people who became journalists because they could not find something else to do. Maybe there was an opportunity and someone said, okay, let me help this fellow. And that's why the passion for the job is not there. I was discussing with a friend some time ago and was telling me about how these days journalists are reluctant to add even a fresh line to an investigative story. Your own fresh line. People will go on the net and simply download stuff. People will syndicate stories amongst themselves. As media practitioners, syndicating stories and becoming so lazy that at a point somebody even syndicated a story and forgot to remove the phone number that was at the base of the story. And it got published by one of the greatest Nigerian newspapers. Came out like that. This one is not fiction. My friend Mojit Jamil will testify to this. That was the level to which we have sunk. It's difficult to blame young people because they are products of the current era, where everything is not just inverted, but things are just going steadily down in our country. And there is hatred for people who speak the truth. Extreme hatred for people who have made a habit of simply speaking the truth at every opportunity. You now see your own colleagues telling you, say what you can do one day. Rather than encourage you to speak the truth, you see journalists are the ones who will even try to frustrate you.
I'm speaking the truth.
Discourage you. If it was like this, if journalism was practiced like this at the time I got into the profession, honestly, I would never have found the motivation in journalism. But things have changed sufficiently, and for a lot of us who got into this profession in the 90s, we can see a lot of things that demoralize us. That is the truth. You can see today, if you publish, whether you are an online, you have an online media outlet or not, if you publish something, people find it difficult to believe. Because fake news has become the order of the day. And even serious media outlets would not even tarry a while before picking up fake news and explaining the Nigerian people. So, if you ask me the state of the profession, I think we can do a lot better than we are doing now. A lot has to change. When we talk about restructuring our country, a lot of us need to restructure our hearts. And journalists too. Those who want to continue to be journalists and not those who simply see journalism as a stopgap measure. They need to restructure their hearts and rededicate themselves to the ideals of our profession. I said some time ago, and when I got home, my wife said, it never occurred to me. I said, see, some of the greatest journalists, like great soldiers, don't always die in their beds. They die because of practicing the profession. Maybe war front, murdered. So a true journalist, every time he sets out to do an investigative piece, must have it at the back of his mind that it could be his last trip. So how many of us have that?
Thank you very much. Please put your hands together for him. I don't know why we didn't clap well. Is it because you are angry with he just told us the truth, and of course, x-raying that state of the media in our country is very, very pertinent. Mr. Lincoln, over to you. So what's the state, or what's the need for a good media, considering what Mr. Mokadide just mentioned? What do you think should necessitate the need for a good media at this stage of our nation?
Well, if you say at this stage of our nation, the truth is that media has a role, like we all know, constitutional role about upholding the constitution, holding the government accountable, and to be able to do this, you need to evolve. You need to understand what you are called to do, what your responsibilities are. And so if you are a journalist, and also we are at a time when we are going through all kinds of shades of democracy that some of us don't understand. And to bring it to recently, I mean, when I heard the announcement of the suspension of the operation. I like to use the exact word, okay, like Gideon saying. Some of these things we need to be very careful. We don't have a ban, we have a suspension of the operation of Twitter in Nigeria. When I heard that announcement, I've been worried about things that happen in this country, but I was more worried because I found that particular action very unfortunate to use that kind of word. I couldn't just comprehend it. I appreciate the concern of the government about ensuring security and not allowing abuse. But I found it worrisome because for me it's like calling a dog a bad name to hang it. We live in a world that is no longer local. And except our leaders understand that, we'll be putting us, making us a laughing stock. And so that makes it important that as journalists, as media, we ensure that we are bold enough to confront injustice or desecration of democracy, because this is something that we fought hard for. And we must not allow it. We must not do things that people will just laugh at us. You know, people should not, you have a situation where the Attorney General Press Secretary announced that people who use Twitter will be prosecuted. And the journalist asked, under what law? And the response was, when they get to court, they will be told the offense they committed. That is not democracy. You know, it just questions a lot about us. So the need for a bold media is a media that can ensure that does not allow us to erode the gains of democracy, because we know what we went through under the military. And we're at a time where we cannot be compared. Nigeria has a larger than life image, so to say. Just yesterday, I find it very unusual. Everything we do in Nigeria, we say the biggest. It's not about being the biggest, it's about being the functional. If you go to Ghana and Republic, if you travel the border of Nigeria to Benin Republic, when you enter Benin Republic, you will know. And that's a country that is not up to Alimosho local government. You will know. So again, a bold media is more important now more than ever before, to let people in government know that they have a rule of engagement. They swear to an oath, and they must not depart from it. And that's why it's very important. And for us to do that, we must understand, and like it is saying, we must appreciate that it's an enormous role. And to play it, we must understand the rules. We are not saying that we should be reckless. There's the ethics of the profession which we must follow, but we must do that with some understanding and be very bold about it. There will be backlashes. There will even be all kinds of hazards, but we must be ready for it. And if whatever happens, we must take it as our own.
Thank you very much. Please put your hands together for Mr. Lincoln. Thank you for sharing this with us. Mr. Lincoln, over to you, sir. So what are the advantages you can prefer, being the bold media that we are asking the media to become, the boldness needed in our media sector? What do you think will be the advantages of having such boldness?
Actually, what I discovered through my own years is, journalism is a way of life for some people. Somebody who is a glutton, you cannot make that person ever not to want to eat food anytime that food is available. Journalism is a state of mind in which, in fact, there's some people they call the activists. These sort of people always want to correct or mention out or say out, stand up for others. The journalists of today, or several of us, are not activists. People go into journalism because if you have mathematics credits, you have English literature credits, and you have a social subject, then you know say you are qualified on the education side. And several people go to journalism so that they may go on television or so that they will be this in the world. Assuming we have a sort of an interview or a dossier by employees to show that the quality of mind that can actually stand and stress and say, no, I stand by what is by what I should be believable. Greatness does not mean prosperity. Most great people that I've heard about, some cannot even pay their children's school fees. But in Nigeria, greatness is prosperity. If you don't have a jeep, you are nobody. If you have a jeep, your jeep will get spoiled, and nobody will clap for you wherever you get to. And if we begin to show this to Nigerians, that we can never go forward except we imbibe the tenets of virtue of integrity, virtue of dignity. Me? No, I won't take that. No, that cannot be in my domain. Then, but by the time you say that cannot be your domain, I remember the 70s when the talk is, if you cannot beat them, join them. Today, when we see some of those of us then who are saying you cannot beat them, join them, and you say, Baba, you join them all, but you forgetting that your generation will face it. Those who will be your phobias will face it. Whatever we do today, we can't escape it. The children of tomorrow, the children we are having, will exactly face the problem. So it is for all Nigerians and for those who are practicing the profession who know that without certain areas they cannot achieve anything. They bring it out, to voice it out, and say, in several forms, this is what is going to do. We are deteriorating. And all right, the people will see the answer. And not inviting you because you are what you are saying, what you are.
We have seen what you can do. Thank you so much. This picture is good out of Mr. Lady. Thank you so much. Okay, Mr. You talked about state of the media, and I heard you say that many people are no longer self-motivated, and you discussed some pertinent problems and challenges. Can you please just provide solutions to them? And of course, can you give us some guidelines as to what we can begin to inculcate into the next generation, so that at least we can push them back to those things that motivated the likes of you to join journalism in the 80s and the 90s. We need solutions now.
I think first and foremost, we've got to do something about the quality of training of our journalists. A lot of today's journalists have not been privileged to go through the kind of training that some of us had. I know that Mr. Okotonyo was an editor at some point who attested this. Some of the courses that were available both in Nigeria and abroad that made fantastic journalists out of our generation. Today's journalists likely do not have the privilege of having such training. Of course, things are a lot more difficult in the country, so people going abroad for courses it's not that easy. I also think that journalism should not be an all-comers affair. I don't know how we can do it. Maybe some of our seniors can come up with ideas and design something that can help regulate, not regulate the way the government is doing its attempt to stifle free press, but to ensure that Not just anybody can simply because there is so much unemployment and then there is an opening and you just become a journalist. No. We see, we work with people and we know that some of them have no reason in the world of people. They are difficult to portray. And when you tell stories that should even inspire people to get better, they don't want to hear those stories. The unreading journalist is not a journalist. A lot of our people don't want to read. You will never get better if you are the type who is reluctant to read. You must read. You must read. That's what makes you better. So for those journalists that will simply, sometimes you look at even press conferences that police like to parade criminals, and then the journalists will be asking them questions. Just get one of those tips and listen to the kind of questions that my colleagues will be asking. You'll be embarrassed. You'll be embarrassed. So that's why I said the quality of training has to be better. Has to be better, and even from the schools. I know that there's no training that can be better than that you get from the job. But to be refreshing if a lot more of our people who had worked in the newsrooms, who have been news editors, managers in the newsroom, go to some of these journalism academies in our country, the quality of training will definitely improve. If we don't have that, then, and we have a lot more journalism schools now, mass communication schools now, than when we were growing up. There was a time that we didn't have more than 3 universities in Nigeria, offering mass communication. I think Unsuka, Bayero, and Unila, just 3, the whole of Nigeria. So you know that to even get into it, you have to be very good, you have to earn it. But now, there are some mushroom polytechnics that are also mass communication. What is the quality of the products? It's something that we got at. So we can improve, and then media owners too must come up with incentive for the staff, for their journalism staff, and then insurance for practitioners. Then of course remuneration. People should be paid regularly. Many media houses don't think that it is even necessary to pay salary. They think that the journalists will get by on this. So now that's why there's so much corruption. The problem is, I can tell them repeatedly, but when you talk to people who have the hands-free set in their ears, chances are that they won't hear you. They are just like Nigerian leaders. You tell them the same thing every day. You shout yourself ears towards. You discover that you are not seeing change. It's not as if they are not seeing you. They watch you. When you are specific in attacking an individual amongst them, you see the way they will respond. You get caught, you almost run away. So they see you talk about these things, but they are not prepared to listen. Out of selfishness. So let's pay our journalists good wages. That will encourage them. Although the journalist who is greedy, give him the whole world, he will still be corrupt. But let's even start from somewhere. The practice of the profession is really badly affected by the fact that it has now become an all-commerce affair, by the fact that everyone now has become a journalist, no training. You set up an online platform. But I hear them call, there's a woman that they call her journalists. Every time I hear that, my blood boils. One woman from Oyo State sits on the internet putting out rubbish, and they call her journalist. That's how they describe her. So if everybody has become a journalist, and even President Buhari is a journalist. So anyone with access to internet is a journalist. No, we should not get to that point. We must find a way to be able to regulate the practice of the profession so that only the best can practice journalism in our country. Wherever we can do it, we got to find a way to do it. Otherwise, things will continue to get bad. I'm sorry I can't stay too long. Yeah. I'm sure you understand because I have to go.
Okay, so quickly, let's move on to that for
My final thought has to do with that. Well, I don't want us to despair. There are a lot to be worried about journalism. I also want to say that, interestingly, we're at a time when there are lots of opportunities to access training and there are resources. So where our organizations cannot afford, let's be sensitive enough to find out. As I speak to you, there are so many media support organizations, but the feedback we are hearing from some of them, it's a where journalists expect that some of these resources will be given to them. For you to access grants, you need to pitch for students. That means you must even be able to explain the stories you want to cover. You must be able to provide a budget and say, this is how much it costs. So I've had a situation where an NGO got money from an organization and they had to return money back from that because they didn't get enough reach. So it's not a situation about it's not a situation where some of us have to rise up and be able to realize that we are at a time when resources are available. And even when we attend some of these programs, let's maximize that advantage. And let's also remember that it's over time, all the conferences that you couldn't attend before, many of them are available for free. So spare your data and attend and see the global journalism.
Thank you very much. Please put your hands together for Mr. Enlightment. Thank you.
For our nation, well, if things don't get then I'm afraid we will not be best for those who are complicated. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Please put your hands together for this wonderful panelist. Thank you, sir, Mr. David, Mr. Lucky, Mr. Nico. Thank you for your time. Please, we can encourage them with a bigger applause. If you learn anything. Okay.
Just remain on stage, please. I think I was very, very inspired by this session. Please, if you were inspired the way I was, please, I think you deserve another round of applause, please. Sir, it's an honor to have you. On behalf of the National Media Community Award NMCA 2021, and by virtue of the fact that you need to be on air. Okay, so we want to quickly present the award to you. And to do us the honors is another nationalist and patriot like yourself that loves this nation with his heart, is blunt like you, but in the area of sports. My mentor. Let's bring to the stage Nigerian renowned sports journalist. Put your hands together for Godwin. Mr. Godwin. The best. Number one.
This is important for us to note that Mr. Babajide Kolade Okitoju is actually our National Media Personality of the Year 2021. Please, can we give him a better round of applause?
Freedom, stand up for the champion, stand up.
Thank you very
this event. You are recognized as the Media Man of the Year 2021, and this is in recognition of your contribution to the growth and development of Nigerian media industry. I say congratulations, and don't want to scribble. Once again, congratulations.